So this is my raised garden out in my yard. You can see a couple of sunflowers down there in the end. Most of these plants are squash. I got acorns on the right, butternuts on the left. There's a couple of tomato plants down there, one pickle plant. I like to call this my control farm. This is the way normal gardeners grow their crops. And as I pan around here, that's the window cover from the greenhouse. You can see the side of it a little bit there. And the second greenhouse in the background, we'll go around and take a look at it. I've been having a blast with this. It's all one great big experiment. Here you can see I'm growing potatoes in containers. They seem to be doing pretty well. I did find one group of potato bug eggs. I killed them off and I haven't seen any more. Here you can see I got one pumpkin plant and it's got some big blossoms on it, so I might get a pumpkin. And then a few more potatoes, a couple of onions. It's got some weeds that need to be pulled. Got some onions in the tub down here and some more potatoes over there. And this is the greenhouse, what I call greenhouse number one. I built this about 4 years ago. It's got plastic on the sides and tempered glass panels from sliding glass doors for the roof. It's worked out really well. As we go in here, you can see I've got quite the jungle. This is my hydroponic setup. Behind the white here is my tank. It's running right now, watering. You can see I got some cucumbers coming along very nicely. I'll be picking a few more. I've already picked probably 25 from here. You can see as we move along, my tomatoes are just starting to get a hint of orange. These are getting a little more orange. I got a couple up here that are just getting a twinge of the orange, but you can see they're growing all over right up to the roof. The hydroponics is doing amazing, even though you can see there where I kinked it, it's still growing. It's just crazy how they grow. Down there you can see a green pepper coming along nicely, and a couple more over here. And I've got green peppers. I've got 2 corn stalks. This was a joke with my friend. He says you can grow corn anywhere, so I had to prove to him that I could too. And you can see they're still in the little black trays, and the roots have grown down through, and they've rooted in, and they're growing, and it appears I'm going to get 2 ears of corn, which just amazes me. And I know that the nutrients are wrong. The strawberries are not doing well at all because the nutrient level isn't really right. But this was an experiment. It's my very first attempt at hydroponics, and I gotta say that I worked hard to try and kill everything. These were actually planted at the end of February, by the way, in my shop, with an artificial light in front of a window, and then moved out here when it got warm. As you can see here, I'm just really loaded with tomatoes. Now these are in the tubs, you can see, and then in a trough, and I just fill that trough with water about every 3rd day, and you can see every 2nd day now, you can see it's almost empty. They need to be watered. And but everywhere you look, you see tomatoes coming. I'm going to have lots and lots of tomatoes this year. Excellent crop. I just knocked off a green tomato. Bumped it with my shoulder. That's one less tomato I'm going to have. These are Roma tomatoes that I planted really late. I planted some and I didn't think they'd come up, and I had them mislabeled, and I planted some more, and now I got lots of them. You can see this black tub. This was an experiment as well. The white vinegar is what I used to bring my pH level down in my hydroponics. This tub is just full of dirt. These are limbs that I cut off the hydroponic tomatoes and just stuck in the ground, because somebody told me they'd root right in and grow, and they were absolutely right. They're growing like crazy here, coming along nicely. These are my latest plants that I planted. Some peppers. They're still pretty tiny, but they're growing good. And a few more days I'll transplant them into bigger containers. Some romaine lettuce a friend gave me. They did good, but I let them get away in one day and they dried right up, and it's coming back pretty good. Here again you can see peppers. You can see some in there. They're just coming on. The pepper plants are looking good and strong. I planted a couple of onions in here because I watched a YouTube video and the guy claims that onions do better when they're intermixed with other plants. This is a trough as well, and you can see that it needs water added to it. These things are drinking water like crazy these days. And these are the original Roma tomatoes that I planted and mislabeled, so they're coming up like crazy now. They're right up to the roof, and it's hard to see, but there are a few tomatoes coming in there, and they're coming along well. Again, more pickles and tomatoes mixed in. I got them tied together right up to the roof. It's just been a crazy fun experiment. You can see I've got just a mass of green leaves. I got the fan blowing on them. Again, these are in a trough down here. You can see by my feet. That system is an adaptation from the rain gutter grow system that Larry Hall designed. He used gutters and put a container out the bottom, a cup out the bottom of the containers, and it sets on it. And I found that the gutter goes dry really fast because I don't have an automatic watering system, so I switched to these. And they also use a kiddie pool and put plants right in it, and that's what I kind of copied, but I went to the trough so I could have long rows instead of the kiddie pools. These are some peppers that were labeled green peppers, and they're coming on, and they're all really odd shapes. I don't know if they didn't pollinate properly or what caused it, but as you can see, this little plant is getting grown over, but it's loaded with peppers, and they're coming right on. There's a few green peppers. That's in the plant that's in the same container with them. So that's pretty much greenhouse one. You can see I have stuff laying all over. I'm not exactly a really neat traditional farmer. In that corner inside, there's an IBC tote, holds about 275 gallons of water, and I've got my solar panel connected to it, and I've got an automatic sensor on it. When the sun shines, it gets it hot, it turns on, and it's off right now, but that does keep that tank from freezing all winter. And as you can see, it's buried in the ground from the outside, but it doesn't freeze all winter. A little view of the roof there. You can see my gutter. It's connected to this tank. That tank is actually about 4 feet high or better. It's buried in the ground. This tube, the little black tube that comes out the side, is a tube that runs down to the other greenhouse. So when it rains and it fills this tank to the top, it automatically siphons. That tube goes down in the tank a ways, and it fills the tank in the other greenhouse for me. So I got rainwater all the time. My 3 blueberry bushes, they're growing well. I got to pull some weeds, but no blossoms yet, and I don't know a whole lot about blueberries, if they should have or not. This was a blackberry that I had last year. It grew really well, and then it froze out through the winter. Didn't make it. And you can see that IBC tank. That's a 330 gallon, and in a second I'll show you one in the greenhouse that I actually buried in the ground. This is my cornfield. I got about 38 stalks of corn coming up there. They're not real big yet. I planted it late, and some onions that are coming along pretty nicely. Hopefully I'll get some big onions. You can see my irrigation system. The tube's laid out there, and I just pour 5 gallons of water in this bucket, and it leaks out onto them pretty evenly, and appears to be doing a good job. So then we'll move into the greenhouse. You can see I used a scrap of glass that was cut off at an angle. I'm all about cheap. The door panels, these are entrance doors that a local company makes that were cut off as samples, and I got them basically for free. You can see up top where I had the fence in. I actually had a coon and he'd go right up those sides and go over top of that until I put that fence up there. I think I finally got him locked out now on the storm door. He was eating more of my strawberries than I was, by far. So these are experiment, these 3 black tubs here. Those are runners that I cut off last year and stuck them in the dirt, and as you can see, they've grown pretty good. The coon really tore them up for some reason. I don't know if it's because I had grass in there for mulch or what caused them, but he really went after them. And then you can see all the buckets, and you can see this first one is a little higher, and it says 21R. That tells me that those are 2021 runners that were cut off, same as these tubs. The 22J would be this year's Jewel strawberries. And you can see some more down there. And here you see 2 rows of berries that look very healthy down on the far end, and not so much on this end. They're being grown hydroponically. And the ones on the far end are Albions, and the ones on this end are Jewels. But I tried really extremely hard to kill them by using that white 55-gallon drum that you saw outside for my reservoir that once upon a time had car wash soap in it, and it was just killing the plants. They just kept going downhill and downhill till I finally switched it out and went to a regular tote. And I'll just show you quick. So that's the system. You can see it's draining back. You can see the pump down in there. I just filled it with nutrients and checked my pH, so it's good for a couple days now. And you can see my berries along the side. They're doing all right, but they look a little weak. So I quit watering them. I believe I had them, when I pick up the containers, they're heavy, so I believe I might have got them too wet. And the ones on this side seem to be doing a little better, but kind of the same problem. You can see them turning light colored, and they just haven't been doing really well, but the coon did really work on them bad. And then these right here are the same thing down at the far end. They're Albions. At this end, they're Jewels. You can see my watering system sticking up there, my little emitters. Here you can see my return pipes on the hydroponic ones. These are just watered and allowed to drain out. You can see the drain holes. And the ones in the dirt on the right here have had about a 10-day head start on the hydroponic ones, but yet the hydroponic ones seem to be really flourishing now that I got it figured out. Although I recognize that I still have some serious problems. You can see down in here that I'm getting some algae. I'm not sure how much is bad, but I'm going to let them go for this year as part of the experiment. But next year, everything will have covers on them so that I won't get algae. And so as I go along here, you can see I got several strawberries coming. I just picked this morning. These can stand another day or so. So tomorrow or Tuesday I'll pick again. I took about a quart off this morning. And the berries, I've tried everything to test as impartially as I can, and I just cannot tell the difference between a hydroponic strawberry and the strawberries grown in soil. This soil is a mix of potting soil, peat moss, and perlite. Seems to do well. And these are, over the years here you can see it's labeled 21A as Albions. As we go along, 21As. I had a lot of those that survived last year. That one you can see is a J22 is a Jewel 22 plant. 21 Albions. So it's been quite an experiment, and hopefully next year I'll make a bunch of improvements. You can see the grass all over the ground. I just run the weed whacker inside my greenhouse, which most people don't do. But and you can see a couple of weeds creeping up under there yet that I miss. But I've got just a dirt floor for this year. Next year I hope to get plastic down. And my plan is to eliminate all these milk crates with shelf brackets next year and put another layer up here near the top of the wall. So I'll have 2 rows of strawberries all along this side. And you can see I got glass in the end. My fan blowing, you can see that it's 85 degrees in here. That is an old TV antenna like it looks. I used for a ridge. It worked out perfect. Had it laying around for years, slapped a coat of paint on it. Typical hoop house construction. One thing that's kind of unique is my ends here. I figured out that to hold that plastic, I put this is the irrigation tube, so it's real flexible, and I put one over the end because those points were cutting into the plastic. And then I figured out that if I cut another one and put over it, it locks it right on there nicely, and that has worked really well for me. In the background here, you can see that big blackberry bush is loaded with berries, and it's got 1,000,000 thorns on it. The other 3 I planted last spring, and they didn't do well last year, but they're coming up very nicely this year. So hopefully I'll get some blackberries. And so that's about the tour. Like I said, it's my operation is a gigantic experiment. I've still got some more things that I want to experiment with, and but it's been fun.